What's up, guys? Mists of Pandaria nearly here, and whether you're a healer main or a raid leader looking for info on the most overpowered options, this is the video for you. We're going to cover every healer, what they excel at, what you might not want to bring them for, and to help with that, I brought in the ultimate healer, Jordy.
Thanks for having me, dude. I'm excited to talk about this.
Alright, so when we talk healers in MoP, what are the different factors you're looking for when we think about healing?
With regards to what healers bring to a raid, there's a few things. Raw HPS, you need to be able to keep the raid up. Cooldowns that you can pop for large damage events, whether that be AoE or just tank damage. Some healers are better at things than others, which is the goal, I think, in order to bring a lot of variety to the raid. But at the moment, there's a couple specs that do everything, and some specs that can't keep up.
Well, with that in mind, let's talk about the gods of healing in MoP, the Untouchables. And I wanted to start out with the Disc Priest. Disc Priest has so many crazy nice changes in MoP, from the Atonement being 40 yards, which is extremely noticeable on fights like Stone Guard, where you have your tank split, crazy good CDs like Halo, Divine Star, and really Spirit Shell as well, just the fact that you can prevent a huge amount of damage from going out if you understand the fights really well. What do you think about Disc Priest in general?
Disc Priest right now can do everything. In Cataclysm, Disc is kind of one of those healers that has a bit lower healing output, but has a lot of utility and a lot of cooldowns. But because their healing output is lower, a bit more balanced. Right now, their healing is just insane. You can't really go wrong with a Disc Priest in any scenario. Like, they can do everything. They can damage, they have cooldowns, they have AoE cooldowns, they have tons of utility with life grip. They heal really well. They have AoE healing, which they didn't used to really have really good AoE healing with Divine Star and Halo.
Moving into Resto Shamans, the other untouchable healer. Having played one recently, I love the CDs they have, the Healing Tide Totem. Of course, Stormlash, it's almost like a mini Lust. You can push through certain things that you wouldn't be able to get through at like DPS checks. What do you think about Resto Shaman?
So Resto Shaman, like you said, they have really high HPS. They have Spirit Link, they have Stormlash, and they have a ton of other tools. They probably have the highest AoE healing of the classes. They're top tier for sure, and Resto Shaman are also very, very good at swapping to Ellie. Like, they're one of those specs that you can flex and be a top tier DPS class.
Especially when it looks like a lot of top guilds will eventually be for healing, probably cutting out a healer by the end of the phase. I'd also like to say that Resto Shamans are so good for challenge mode dungeons. Capacitator Totem is just ridiculous for crowd control. When you're having an interrupt, you immediately notice it. You do Skolomance, for example. A fear gets off and your entire group's gonna wipe because someone's gonna pull the boss. Boom, you just interrupt that. But the one thing I would say is, if you can't stack everybody up in the right spot, your healing's significantly reduced.
Yeah, it does require a little bit of planning ahead, but I think that it's strong enough that even if things go sideways, they have the tools to bring you back from the brink.
So moving into the debated category, these are the healers that people actually are going to fight for and they do want to have in the raids. And starting that off would be the Resto Druid. Now, I've talked to some top guilds, and some of them do plan to run Resto Druids. They have really good crowd control, good utility, they have the battle res, of course, and competitive healing. Now, what do you think about Resto Druids?
I think Resto Druids are definitely third on the list. They have a lot of niche uses that you will find are super valuable. The last boss of Mokushin Vaults, they are going to be very, very good at, because there are ads that spawn and Resto Druids can root them. They have Stampeding Roar, which is that huge move speed boost, which is really nice. They're a strong healing class. They just get mostly outclassed by the other two. But I do think that there is a room in a well-rounded raid for them.
So we have a question from Captain Mullins. Is our Druid viable for 10-man heroics?
I don't think that they're going to be great. Your optimal 10-man comp is going to be Disc Priest, Resto Shaman. Bringing Resto Druid, while you will totally be able to get through the content, you're going to feel the difference without the other two.
Well, another class with some diehard fans is the Mistweaver Monk. Now, kind of similar to a Disc Priest almost. You're doing damage to heal people. You have a lot of good CDs. You have Revival, for example, huge raid CD taking off magic and poison debuffs. You're extremely mobile. Now, I don't know why being Lucio from Overwatch is a selling point for a healer, but what do you think about Mistweaver Monks?
Mistweaver is the most non-functioning healer because of the state that the game it finds itself in at the end of 5.4.8. Fist weaving is so much mana, and Mistweaver has been nerfed so much in the terms of the cost of their spells and their mana regen. They can't do it for more than a small amount of time, and so are really going to need to see some tuning on the Mistweaver in order for that role to be possible.
But even if it is viable, let's say, do you really want your healer to be in melee range? In a challenge mode, for example, where it seems like half the mobs I'm fighting leave something on the ground that one-shots melee.
It's a super valid question, and I think that is part of the tax that a Mistweaver needs to pay, and they should get a reward in the output or the damage that they're doing. It should be a high skill, high risk class.
All right, so now let's move into the forgotten classes, the healers that only have maybe a few defenders in MoP. And let's start with the Holy Paladin. I like the rotation. I like the fact that the seals are essentially stances, or Rs, really. The heals are really strong. Holy Radiance. What do you think about Holy Paladin?
Holy Paladin is probably, in the current state, the weakest straight up healer, and they have a lot of utility that can save stuff, right? Like they have a taunt, they have a bop, they have a bubble, or a mastery, or devotion, or whatever you want to call it now. They bring a lot of raid buffs, and so hand of sack, they have a lot of tools. Unfortunately, they just don't have the raw output right now compared to the other healers, and they don't really do a ton of damage.
Well, one class that is probably going to need some tuning is the Holy Priest. It just feels like home for me. It's very similar to Season of Discovery. So if you played that, you know 80% of what you're about to be doing. You get Divine Hymn, which you stole from Disc Priest. You get all those cool new AoE abilities that we love, the Divine Star, the Halo. What do you think, though?
I think that Holy Priest can be competitive numbers-wise. I think it's harder spec to play. It doesn't add utility that Disc doesn't have, and Disc does damage. So you're always going to pick the healer that does everything the other healer does, but also does damage.
All right, now let's move into the tier list, and we're going to be ranking these healers based on really what you would want to bring, whether it's challenge modes, raids, kind of the most overall well-rounded healers. So starting with Disc Priest, they offer everything. They have so many raid CDs. They are the perfect healer to me. What do you think?
Yeah, Disc Priest is the unequivocal #1 healer. I would say the only weakness that Disc has is that its off-spec is a bit weaker. No fault to it. Yeah, Disc Priest is the best healer, hands down.
Moving into Resto Druid, best version of Resto Druid since TBC. It's not a Disc Priest, it's not a Resto Shaman, but it feels like an A tier to me. What do you think?
I think I'm in the same boat. Yeah, it's a great healer. It's just in comparison to the other ones, it's tough. But I think that it's got all the tools you need in most scenarios, and it has a lot of utility that the other healers don't have.
So Holy Paladin, that feels like a B tier to me.
I don't know if I could put Holy Paladin above C tier right now, which is sad because historically, like I said, they're very, very, very good in MoP. They just at the time, the snapshot in time that we find ourselves in, tuning wise, they're just not.
So Mistweaver Monk to me it's clearly a step below Disc Priest. Feels like an A tier, especially it's kind of to be determined if they're still going to make some fixes.
I think at the exact moment in time we are right now, you could say maybe it's a low A, high B. I'd probably put them in the B tier. I think for a class that is the new content class, out the gate, 2 of the 3 specs being mostly not great is a bummer.
All right, so Holy Priest now, as fun as they are for me, as much as I love them, they feel like sort of a low B tier. You're probably not bringing one because you could just play Disc.
If Holy Priest didn't share a class with Disc Priest, I would say it's probably a B tier. But because Disc exists, I would put them at D just to be spicy, because you're always going to push for that Holy Priest to go Disc. And if the choice was only between Holy and Shadow, then yeah, I would maybe go B. but it's just going to be tough to bring them.
Yeah. So our final healer, the Resto Shaman. Now, they're right up there with the Disc Priest to me. They have so many great raid CDs. They're so good in challenge mode dungeons.
Yeah, I think that's the spot right there where you have it. It's just behind Disc. It's well-rounded. It has a lot of tools. You're going to want at least one for every single raid.
If you had to pick one healer for MoP, which one are you going to main?
You already know me, dude. I have 7 Disc Priests at level 85.
Wait,
I
7
do.
Disc Priests.
4 on EU and 3 on NA right now. You know, I'm gonna play a Mistweaver. I'm gonna play a Resto Shaman, but I'm gonna be maining Disc.
Well, any last words, Jordy, before we get you out of here?
Healing right now is the most fun I've had playing this game ever, and I played this game a while. If you're a DPS player or a tank player and you've never gone healer, I highly recommend at least playing a Disc because it is so much fun.
Well, fantastic. A huge thank you to Jordy. I'll link his channel below and everything. He is awesome, super knowledgeable about healing. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and make sure to keep it here for more MoP videos.